think back to the very first job that you did when it was really counting. I don't mean the stuff where you worked at the junkyard or for the grocery store or for the gas station, but I mean the one that was a position that you were going for. And that's where I'll start tonight, because in most of our minds it has to do with happiness and satisfaction. That's what you go to work for, to get happiness and satisfaction and put it in your pocket and walk around with it. Well, coming out of college, I should have been more suspicious, but one of my friends in college was from military intelligence. And he came to me one day and says, you know, you ought to go down there and apply for that position. I said, a position? Really? And he says, yeah, they're hiring down at the mental health center. And I go, what do I know about mental health? And he said, well, go down there and apply for it because they're asking for you. Really? So I went down there all wide-eyed and kind of scared about the whole thing. And I showed up and I had to interview with a psychiatrist and a psychologist separately. And it was very intimidating. Terrifying, actually. I didn't know what was going to come out of this thing. You know, I go in for a position and I may end up being incarcerated. I don't know. So I'm sitting there, and the first person I meet is the psychologist. And she just asked a bunch of open-ended questions. But the key parts that she started asking about is, what do you want to be? And then she started ticking off ages, which seemed like way out there. 30 years old. What do you want to be when you're 30 years old? I didn't think about it much. I just said, I want to be happy. Well, what about when you're 40 years old? Yeah, I want to be happy when I'm 42. And she said, well, what about when you're 60? And I said, I definitely want to be happy when I'm 60 years old. You know, when you're talking to a psychologist like that, they don't smile. They don't tell you what they're thinking. They're just like taking it all in. Well, I didn't know how that had sat with her, and then she sent me over to the psychiatrist. Now, the psychiatrist sits in this humongous chair. He's got bighorn rimmed glasses, little bald-headed guy, and he proceeds to ask me, tell me about, just wide open, tell me about yourself. And why are you here? Do you think you deserve this position? Well, I didn't tell you what the position was. The position was a demonstration project for the National Institute of Drug Abuse and the National Institute of Mental Health. It was one of 5 that had been awarded in the entire nation. Greenwich Village, Haight-Ashbury, LA, Madison, Wisconsin, and little old Space Coast down here where the rockets go from. Well, you would think, what does that have to do with the rest of these populations? Well, the Space Coast had horrible, horrible, horrible statistics about how its people were living. Highest suicide rates, divorce rates, drug abuse, you name it. They were at the top of the chart per capita. And they wanted somebody to run a demonstration project to show how to fix it. And here I am sitting in the seat, and I had no idea what I'd walked into. And it was really scary. So he says, tell me about yourself and why you think you ought to take this position. Well, I'm kind of fumbling around. Not unlike what I'm doing right here. But, and I said, well, in college I was in the student government, and we declared a statewide boycott against Coca-Cola because of the atrocities that they were doing to migrant workers, basically treating them as slaves. And it turned out that Coca-Cola totally reversed the situation because of our efforts, and won awards for how great their migrant camps were in a year or two. And we had something to do with that. And there was this thing at the time, while I was in college, called the generation gap. Old people could not talk or relate to young people. That was the perception. And I decided, that's wrong. I know lots of old people, and I know lots of young people, and we all talk together. Who is spreading this myth? And we're going to do something about it. We're going to get old people and young people to work together. We're going to have a festival, a free 24-hour festival. It won't cost a dime to get into. There'll be no staff. There'll be no budget. And we did it. And we had over 25,000 people show up. We had all the amenities. We had everything. We had a light show. We had a big stage. We had 12 or 24 different acts. They came on every hour, different act. Tons of people, all drug-free. Parents without partners, retired groups of people, Rotary clubs, Boy Scouts were involved. I mean, there was just a huge array of different kinds of people that were all involved. And so the point was that there is no generation gap. We can all work together and we can enjoy all kinds of music together. And so I told him a few other little things. And you know, just like the psychologist, he didn't convey much with his face. And he looked at me and he said, you know, you're dangerous. Whoa. What do you mean? And he says, you remind me of that character in Z. And then he turned around and he says, that'll be all. And I'm going, holy cow, you know, I'm dangerous, and I walk out and I go back and I'm going, you know, there's no way I got that job. You don't walk out of a job interview being told you're dangerous. So I did get the job. And it was a heck of a job, and I enjoyed it immensely. And why I told that story is because the whole goal in my life has been to be happy. That's all I want to be, is happy. And they tell you these days and times, I don't know if you've seen all these programs that tell you about what is happiness. How much money does it take to be happy? And they have numbers now, $40,000, $45,000. Basically, once you've got food, shelter, and transportation, and steady, you're not worried about you're going to be able to keep that over your head, you're going to be probably, very likely, happy. You don't have to have millions and all that. Well, a couple of days ago, I live way out in the woods. Way out in the woods. I love it out there. And early in the morning, I got up and I walked out into the yard. You know, when you live in the woods out there, you can have a clothesline if you want to. It doesn't matter. You can do all kinds of stuff out in the woods you can't do in the city. And so I walked out in the yard and I realized the sun is coming up and the sun is streaking through the trees, and it's beautiful. It's illuminating. You know, the first thing in the morning and the last thing in the evening when it bends the sun rays and it's bright, and it just works the whole way the light beams come through, and it just makes everything like pop. Just pop visually. So there it is. It's just popping visually. And I realize it's all an illusion because the sun isn't rising at all. There's no rising sun. The earth is tumbling through space. And as the earth rolls like doing somersaults, it makes the illusion that the sun is rising. The whole earth is moving. The sun isn't doing much of anything except being the center of it. And so I'm sitting there and I realize, you know, this is a beautiful place. I'm happy. And as I'm relieving myself, I realized I'm happily flying through space. And that was the goal by the time I got to be 60 years old, was to be happy flying through space. So there I was. Now this song was written in about 1948. The guys that wrote it also wrote Silver Threads and Golden Needles. It's been done by a ton of people. But I'm going to do it my own way, my own happy way. How many times have you heard someone say, if I had his money, I'd do things my way. But little they know that it's so hard to find one rich man in 10 with a satisfied mind. Oops, forgot my words. Once I had money, fortune and fame, all that I needed for a start in life's game. Suddenly it happened, I lost every dime, but I'm richer by far with a satisfied mind. Once I was weighted with fortune and fame, all that I needed for a start in life's game. And suddenly it happened, I lost every dime, but I'm richer by far with a satisfied mind. Now money won't buy you youth when you're old, or a friend when you're lonely, or love that's grown cold. One thing's for certain, when it comes my time, I'll be richer by far with a satisfied mind. The wealthiest person is a pauper at times, compared to the man with a satisfied mind. When my life is over and my time is no more, I'm there with my loved ones who've gone on before. One thing's for certain, when it comes my time, I'll be richer by far with a satisfied mind. Money won't buy back your youth when you're old, or a friend when you're lonely, or love that's grown cold. The wealthiest